Welcome to the new series on the marketing of innovations. Now, marketing is a very interesting topic. People see marketing as bringing a product to the customers, and sometimes we confuse it with sales. Well, one of my professors told me that if you do your marketing properly, there's no need for sales, because people will look at your products and love it, and therefore marketing is in essence the complete understanding of customers at the price, bringing them the value at the price that they are willing to pay, and selling them at the right location at the right time. So marketing of innovations is also interesting, because innovations are new things, new products, new services that you have introduced, and people never heard of it before. For example, an iPad. So how do you know that people will buy? And I think that it's very important that marketing of innovations is quite different from the marketing of everyday products, such as FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods. And therefore, it needs some attention for us to look into the details. Now, as in all marketing, we can look at the 4 P's: product, price, place, promotion. And based on this, which is the 4 P, which is easy for people to understand, we're going to apply these 4 P's of marketing to the marketing of innovations, new product or services, or sometimes people call deep tech products or high tech products. Now let's start with product first. So if you look at the user or the customer, and we do differentiate between user and customer. So sometimes the user is not the customer. Just imagine that if you are in the, let's say, Toys R Us, or a place where you are buying toys for kids, the user, which is really the kids, are not the same as the customer. So we need to understand that point. So the user or the customers will definitely have needs, and this is something that they want. So in marketing, the very first important topic is about the product, and the product really depends on the needs of the customer. Now let's take a look at this example. This is Segway. Well, Segway, as you know, is touted as the most technologically advanced two-wheelers. I was fascinated by the technology when it was introduced. However, Segway doesn't sell or achieve its potential because it defines that the market, and just the general market, which revolutionized public transportation. And it didn't happen. It became very niche, such as being used for tourists, being used in warehouses, or specific needs for transportations in airports. How about the famous Google Glass? Well, it was launched with great fanfare to customers, that everybody should love it, wear it, and you can see and maybe identify the person who is in front of you while you're talking to him, and know his habits, his background, his name even. But at the end, Google Glass does not need its full market potentials. It's used again in a niche. So really, it's not that easy to come up with a product and then wow the world and then says, okay, we can roll it out to the market. All high-tech products, all great innovations. So what we really want is to go down to the fundamental. So what's the fundamental? Well, maybe Jane here has a need to communicate, to pass message. And we all know that using phone, SMS, is a way to pass message from one party to another party. So, simple. It meets the needs of Jane to pass messages to other party. And SMS really pick it up. So one of the important things about marketing is the needs of the user, that the product must address the needs of the user. Bear in mind that we have tools to do that, to figure out the needs of the user. Now, you look at it this way. You have a product, maybe there's an existing product that meets the needs of the user, and you're promoting or proposing an innovation, and here in this case, WhatsApp. Now, the basic needs are the same. It's about communication, passing messages to another party. And therefore, both of them meet the basic needs. So the first thing is you must meet the needs of the user. The second thing is that you must compete against maybe the existing products or new products that are coming on the market. So therefore, for marketing of innovations, there are two things that we have to pay attention to. First, do you meet the needs of user? Second, how do you compete against the other products? And in this case, we have SMS or short message service versus the over-the-top or application-based or apps, WhatsApp. Well, there are others, right, like telegrams that comes later. But this WhatsApp is a direct competitor to the SMS that meet the needs of the user for communication. So when the second step is look at the competition and try to understand the competition and figure out what's the advantages, what are the unique competitive advantages. All right, and you can see that in this case, WhatsApp has actually grown very fast in such a short time versus the dominant player, which is SMS. So it looks very familiar, right? This is like an S curve, and then it goes down, and then another sharper curve that comes up. So remember two things in the way you strategize on the product. First, meet the needs of the user. Second, who are your direct competitors? And therefore, if you look at the S curve, you can look at here, or SMS, and that WhatsApp has a higher performance, and these are much more graphic-based, and therefore, it actually overtake the SMS and become the new products. And that's how we can look at the marketing of innovations or deep tech product. Another way to look at it is to use conjoint analysis, which is a whole series of steps to do or break down the requirements of a product into many parts or attributes. So for example, if you have a toy, the toy will have a couple of attributes: the entertainment attributes, the educational attributes. And therefore, people place different weight or part worth on the attributes. And we need to do a survey to figure out that, on the whole, is entertainment 50% or entertainment 80%, and therefore education is 20%. And based on that, we trade off. And this needs quite a sizable exercise or survey amongst the user, and we can actually use this technique called conjoint analysis to figure out the needs of the users like multiple variables. Well, the simplest tool that we can use is the value proposition canvas, which is understanding the customer profile, which is the user, and the value map. The value map addresses the needs of the user, right? And if we go through in details, what are the jobs of the customer profile, we can look at it from three angles: the functional jobs, which is what it's supposed to do; the emotional jobs, the attachment, the individual emotions of the user; and the social jobs, and how it relates to other parties. So these three jobs comes together, and we can figure out where are the pain points, where are the gain points, and that has a complete persona of the customer profile. From there on, we can then brainstorm or propose the solution or the product or the services, which then we have the gain creator and the pain relievers, and the gain creator address the gain points, pain relievers address the pain points. Well, you can then have a fit, and obviously if you have a perfect fit, then the customers will love the product or buy the product. So that is the purpose of the value proposition canvas. It gives us a conceptual framework for us to work out the needs of the customer and to propose a product or service. Well, the important thing is really the fit. Sometimes we say, what is the minimum viable product? So are you addressing the essential customer gains, what he likes, or extreme customer pain, what he don't like? So the fit is important. However, there will be a whole big list here and the whole big list there. So we really cannot design a product that fits everything that the customer wants. And therefore, we've got to be selective. So the question of being selective is then a matter of strategy, right? It's a matter of how do you build strategy into your product. Now, so for example, you have a user. He has a need for communication, fast, easy, maybe graphical in nature. Maybe can bring more people into the program. Maybe it's easy to manipulate, right? Links up with all his data, his or her database. And therefore have a perfect product of what this person wants, and it must have a fit. Then the next question is, are you addressing this? And then we say, SMS does address this. WhatsApp does address her needs. Then the question is, how they compete against each other. Now, does WhatsApp need to be a perfect match here? Not really, because the first product is SMS. So SMS addresses some of the needs. WhatsApp needs to be a little bit better than SMS, right? So it's all based on what is available in the market and whether you have advantage against or unique competitiveness against the existing product when you introduce the new innovations. And that's how the concept or the framework of value proposition design comes in, which we can spend more time into details. Look at it. A functional job could have two pains, F1 and F2. An emotional job could have one gain. And therefore, if you have a product, a value that you want to propose, you can address V1, which is address the gains, and V2 address the pain. Not necessarily you must address everything, as long as you are better than the other party, the other competitors. So for competitive analysis, we need to understand how we compete and where are the uniqueness. And one of the important tools that has came out is really the blue ocean or the red ocean strategy. And this is the typical graph that's being used in such strategy, where you have the blue ocean strategic move against the red ocean. So how do you do competitive analysis? Well, on the horizontal axis, you have all the factors, like what we have done in the previous slide to say F1, F2, E1, right? So we have listed down all the factors. These are all the factors that is based on the industry performance. And you can see that what you want to do is to differentiate from the industry, the current product range. And they may in this range, and therefore what you can have is the blue line, which you see some of them are the same, some of them are completely non-existent, some are higher, some are lower in terms of features, and some are totally new. All right? So therefore, this is what we call a value curve or a strategic profile that shows the competitiveness against the other product. Now, if you look at this, we can actually identify certain patterns. The first pattern is looking at the blue line and comparing features by features. Did we raise the performance factor? Number one, the blue dots is higher than the red dots. Do we eliminate? That means there's a feature here and we totally eliminate it. Do we reduce the feature? It is here and we reduce it here to lower. And important thing is, have we create new features? Now you can apply it to different competitive products and then you can see or visualize how competitive your product vis-a-vis the others. Now take a look at the Uber, right? The ride-hailing application against the traditional taxis. So the question is, does it raise the standards? Yeah, because it raises the standards by saying that, okay, now you can use apps to order versus you need to call. Does it eliminate? Yes. It doesn't have roadside pickup. It doesn't have a taxi stand, right? So it eliminates all this, which is important because these are costly things, right? The taxi cruising around, picking up passengers costs money. Does it reduce the features? Well, if you use a Uber, you can't guarantee that the quality is the same throughout. But for taxi fleets, you can more or less, and they will make sure there's a certain quality standards. But each car, in terms of comfort for Uber, may not be the same. How about creation? In the case of ride-hailing applications, well, the creation is that you now know, or you can track where is your transport, where is your vehicle, is it turning, is it 2 minutes from you? While in the traditional taxi fleet, it doesn't have. Now this, as what I've mentioned, is in the original competitive stage. Obviously, the taxi fleet would have catch up, but the world has changed. So if we look at this graph and we see the red line up and down and the blue line up and down, sometimes it's quite difficult for us to understand. So it might be better for us to rationalize, and I proposed a new technique, which is to have the industry value curve normalized as a straight line, same as the factors below. And then you can look at the 4 important factors of ERRC is to look at the new value curve, your innovation. Did it eliminate that couple of features? Did it have performance that are lower than the industry value? Does it have features that are higher than the industry value? And then does it has, or you create new features that the industry doesn't have? And that's what we call, and I call ERRC, eliminate, reduce, raise, and create, ERRC. So this is what I would think as a much more simple way for us to compare the uniqueness of existing product and the innovations. And therefore, you have all these features really in place. Now, you can also do the traditional technique of market positioning. And the traditional techniques is actually 2x2 matrix. Having 3x3, whatever, would be too complex. So it is limited because you have to choose 2 factors or 2 generic factors, the most important one, which is on the 2 dimension, high and low, vertical and horizontal, and then position them. And obviously, a lot of people will say, okay, positioning them at the right-hand corner is probably the best. Okay? Well, you have to be very careful on this. So these are some of the positioning of, for example, where is the gap in the marketplace compared to the rest, and then you can decide on the uniqueness of the product. All right? So this is also what we know as the product positioning template. So what really is important now is so in conclusion, what is really important for marketing of innovations is to understand your user and what are the pains and gains, or what are the needs and the problems that the user is facing, proposing the solution so that you can address the needs of the user with a fit. And the second thing is to check whether existing products and your products and your innovations are differentiated. So the tool we use, value proposition canvas, to figure out the needs. And the other tool we use is the strategy canvas to check on the uniqueness and differentiation. And that is the first P of marketing of innovations, product.